So the NBA season has finally come to a conclusion. We've reached the finish line, and the winners at the end of this marathon is the Golden State Warriors for the fourth time in 8 years. They can call themselves NBA champion. Steph won the Finals MVP. I think he averaged really the second or third highest points per game in the Finals on the road. Jordan was 38. I think somebody was 37. He was like 36 straight up. But Golden State won in 6.
36 on the road.
On the road. Golden State won in 6. Like I say, Steph won his first Finals MVP. Boston, Eastern Conference champions. Their young wing duos. They played great up until the finals with Golden State. I don't think people was giving Golden State credit at the time because everybody just was running with the thing that Boston's the better team and Boston's just gonna take off at some point. But Golden State, being the veteran team, which I think we alluded to at some point, like they figured them out and got it done, like the veteran championship team that they are.
Yeah, you could say it was a game 4. When they figured them out, and Steph figured them out first, and then they knew what to do going forward or whatever. But yeah, they got it done. 4 championships in 8 years. That's the most in the 8-year span since the Bulls. So congrats to the Warriors. It was a great season. They started off as the best team, so I guess only fitting that they end up on top.
Right. With that being said, I'm John W.
For sure.
And this is the Hoopers Afternoon Session. Like
my
I say,
bucket, right?
like I say, it's the end of the season wrap up, which I think for a lot of star players, I think it's not going to get us credit, but I think this was a great season overall. I know there was a lot of injuries. There was some misfortunes by some teams because of some things that you should always factor in actually happening. The Lakers is one of those things. Shout out to John Wall, who picked up his $47.4 million option real quick.
Everybody started hating on John Wall. He did not choose not to play basketball next year, so start retweeting that he didn't play no games on my timeline. Thank you.
Right. Like I say, Denver, Jokic back-to-back MVP. I think his season was so puzzling.
Did Giannis go back-to-back?
Yeah, Giannis went back-to-back.
Okay, now I was trying to think when the last time he had back-to-back. So
we've had back-to-back the last 2 years. I want to say the last 3 years with Steph as well. The last 3 MVPs.
Now it was James.
Yeah, James Harden was 2000. I always forget that 2000. Yeah, James Harden got one, snuck one in there too. But this season overall, before we really get breaking down a bit, of course, once again, not all time, but this season for you, how much did you enjoy this season? Not necessarily how high would you rank this season, but how much did you enjoy it?
Can't rank it, but I thought it was a great year. Like to see the emergence of the Warriors. Like I said, at the top of the year, they started off hot, and just wondering could they keep it going. The emergence of the Grizzlies this year, Ja Morant took another step. It was great seeing Anthony Edwards take another step this year. I can't wait to see him next season. Sure. Overall, though, I think it was a solid season up and down. Like you said, Jokic had a great year this year, back-to-back MVPs. Embiid played well, and I don't think Embiid is getting enough credit for how he carried the 76ers this year, because you see like some of the names, but like having Ben Simmons sit out the first half of the season almost until you finally trade and get James Harden at the end of the year or whatever. So shout out to the year that Embiid have been relatively healthy throughout the year. So the Pelicans run at the end of the year, seeing how great of a transaction it was to get C.J. McCollum and watching Brandon Ingram in the playoffs and stuff like that. Willie Green, shout out to Willie Green. I'm glad they was able to turn around for him because I really like Willie Green. So I didn't want his job to be in jeopardy. So I thought it was a really good season. People are going to talk about the injuries, but it's always going to be injuries. It's going to be injuries next year. It's going to be injuries the year after. I am looking forward to hopefully seeing Kawhi play next year. That's what I'm anticipating the most about next year. But I thought it was a great year. Seeing DeMar DeRozan's bounce back year this year, putting the Bulls back in position. And the Bulls team honestly just fell apart, in my opinion. Everybody got hurt. It started at the top of the year with Patrick Williams, and everybody got so hurt.
Who came back at the end of the year?
He came back. That's just how hurt they were. He was like, I got to get back, because he was supposed to miss the whole season. So, but DeMar played a really great year to even get consideration for MVP. For people even just mentioning his name. I think that was fun for me to see. I always love to watch, players from my high school class that's doing well still in the NBA. So enjoyed DeMar this year. I think it was a big year. Like all the it wasn't just about the big teams. We saw Minnesota be good this year. We saw Cleveland be good this year. Memphis was good this year. So that's good to see just that around the league, how much competition there was for even some of the smaller teams. Toronto got themselves back into it. Fred VanVleet made his first All-Star team, and then Pascal Siakam came back and made his second All-NBA team. Didn't even make the All-Star team, but he made All-NBA. So it was a good year, man. You got to love basketball, honestly.
No, yeah, for sure. And just like you say, speaking of some of those smaller market teams, they were definitely all, for the most part, led by younger players, like, say, Memphis with Ja, Cleveland with Evan Mobley and Darius Garland, the All-Star, Jared Allen, the other All-Star, Minnesota with Anthony Edwards, Karl-Anthony Towns, who's still on the younger side in Minnesota. Do you think the league, that's kind of what the league has been searching for? Because even if you look at New Orleans, I know Zion Williamson, the player they drafted, he didn't play much this year. They did make the trade for C.J. McCollum or Brandon Ingram. Even though they traded for him a couple of years ago, he's like that home star for them that they're going to build their tickets around until Zion get on the court. Which one of those young teams did you, even like Charlotte with LaMelo, but which one of those young like mid-market teams were you impressed with the most?
At the end of the year, and even if we're thinking like going forward, because I wouldn't count Dallas. Will we count Dallas?
I don't know.
Mid-market Dallas is a big
I don't find Dallas is a small market.
What I like at the end of the year, I still acknowledge that the Pelicans were like they still had a bad record. They used to play in to get in. The team at the end of the year was kind of different than the team at the beginning of the year. Obviously, had McCollum, but I like what the Pelicans did at the end of the year. I like what they got going forward. I think Zion's gonna be healthy next year. I think Zion's gonna have a big year. And then you bring CJ back, bring Brandon Ingram back. Got Trey Murphy. Got Herb Jones, Jackson Hayes. Willie Green is the coach. I'm not a big fan of David Griffin as the GM, but he's building. It's starting to turn in their favor for sure. So you got to give him credit for that. But going forward, it's like people have been picking the Pelicans to make the playoffs for like 2 years since they drafted Zion. Has been they're the team. And I'm like, nah. Now I think they're a team that's up and coming next year. Sure. Like if any team made a jump next year to being top 6, like not having to be in the play-in, I would put them in that conversation. I don't want to give them home court yet, but if they got a healthy Zion, healthy CJ, because CJ has to stay healthy for the whole year also, healthy Brandon Ingram, that's a good start.
They can definitely make, like you say,
top 6.
Willie Green is a great coach as well, like you say, especially with the turnaround that they had. Minnesota, who I think is a young team who everybody's been waiting for, especially with a player like Cat, who's been, you can say he's a top 3 or 4 center. He's been an All-Star before. I think he's been All-NBA. Anthony Edwards, who we all just seen in Adam Sandler's movie Hustle, just playing himself, has been great his first 2 years in the NBA. He really showed some clutch scoring in the first round, even though they didn't win that series against Memphis. They got a good young core in general. McDaniels, Vanderbilt. D'Angelo Russell seems like he's ready to get traded for whatever reason. I don't know why. Patrick Beverley as a vet. I think a lot of people had high hopes for Minnesota this year. Like, I think a lot of people saw them making the play-in. I know they made that celebration went crazy in the play-in after winning it because they hadn't been in the playoffs in forever. But how do you look at Minnesota's season this year? Because I think Minnesota's still trying to figure things. I think they're right there figuring out. I think once they decide that Anderson is the guy, they'll figure out some more things. But how do you think Minnesota fared this year?
I mean, overall, you got to say they did well to make the playoffs for the first time in a couple of years since Tibbs was there, and only the second time in however long. They got a bright future going forward. I think going forward, we're going to see them feature Ant more. D'Angelo Russell, like I think he was really important for them, but he's always so in and out of the lineup. But I don't really know who you would trade him for either. So you really just want him to be healthy. But if there's a good move for D'Angelo or a guard that can kind of do similar things to him, that can play big in the fourth quarter and shoot pretty well, distribute the ball, and know to get the ball to Anthony Edwards, I would look at that too. But you got to think Minnesota got a bright future going forward. Really all behind the man, Ant-Man.
Right.
All going forward behind him. A couple of years, we're going to be asking to see the best shooting guard in the league. That's my the only hot take I give, really.
No, yeah, I got that same hot take as well. The point guard position for maybe the last 10, 12 years has been there's always been great point guards, but I think over the last 10 to 12 years,
It's featured a lot.
It's been featured a lot more, especially with the way NBA seasons, NBA teams run their offenses. We saw a couple first-time All-Stars this year: DeJounte Murray, Darius Garland, Ja Morant, LaMelo Ball as well, all point guards.
We got Fred VanVleet.
Oh, Fred Van. Is he a young point guard? Is he young?
Is he young?
Yeah, that's my only question. Like, is he young? Maybe
it was his first time, so he's young enough.
Young enough. All right, facts. Of course, Steph, Chris Paul, all the old players. At some point, they're gonna be done, and they're just, they're not gonna necessarily get any worse, but they definitely gotta get passed up by some of these young players. Which one of those young point guards were you most impressed with this year? Not necessarily who was your favorite,
Fred
but
28. Luke Fred, man.
But 28. But which one was you more impressed with? Not necessarily which one was your favorite to watch, but who impressed you the most with their season this year?
Did you say Ja Morant? Ja Morant, he's
the
easy answer, and it's obvious that Ja was really impressive. So I'm not even gonna say Ja. I'm gonna say DeJounte Murray. I thought he was one of the most deserving players that earned his All-Star spot. He was the player that I was really hoping was going to get a spot that I didn't think was going to make it. And then he ended up being a replacement. Right? Yeah. He ended up being a replacement. So whatever, you made it. It's on your resume. I accept it. But 19, 8, and like 2 steals this year. Like, DeJounte is really good. And we've been waiting on that moment since his second year when he made the all-defensive team, his second year in the league, and then he goes through those injuries. And, it's supposed to be him and Kawhi. Obviously, Kawhi gets moved. And this was the first year I feel like the team was like, all right, it's really about you. If they're trying to find the pieces. Are you a future piece of what we got? And just you finally taking that next step. Honestly, like the potential stuff is always cool. And I respect every NBA player, especially a starter, a player that can make an all-defensive team. Thanks. But when teams do hold certain players in high regard, they don't want to trade you. They don't want to give up. They see you as more than just an asset. I think it's gratifying to see that player finally get to that potential because I think we've gotten to an era now where people are either they overlook at the stats or they try to act like the stats don't matter. But eventually you got to put some stuff on the stat sheet and you're going to command these contracts. The team want to see you make some all-star appearances and stuff like that. And DeJounte, I know he's not super young because he's been around for a minute now, but he's still a young player. And that still gives potential for what they might can do in San Antonio. Or if I'm somebody out there looking, he might be what you need if you can make the right deal for him. I think he would look good in a couple of places that need a point guard that's trying to go to the next level. But I'm going to say DeJounte, to elevate his game, make that all-star position. And it's not like the Spurs were top 3 or whatever. Where all right, you got to put somebody from that team. He's having a really good year.
He had the most triple doubles since David Robinson.
Yeah, season. Yeah, I think he had more than David Robinson. So, but since him, for sure. So, DeJounte Murray for sure.
No, I definitely agree with that. DeJounte Murray has definitely lived up to all the expectations this year. Like I say, 19-8. San Antonio didn't make the playoffs, so I don't think a lot of people. Really caught on to how well he was playing, but DeJounte was definitely a high point for the Spurs this year.
Right? They playing.
Yeah, they made it playing. Like I said, they were there all season. Like I said, they just, they're still a young team for the most part, looking for that next player looking for maybe they already got it. Maybe they're looking for it in the draft this year.
Did they got the number 9 pick?
Yeah, of course. There's the talks that they might move up to draft the player, but San Antonio, Papa's definitely going to come back for another year. I think I seen somewhere that he hasn't decided how long he's going to coach, but he's going to coach for a while as long as he wants to.
He's going to keep going. That's what's up.
Marcus Smart, first defensive player of the year as a guard since Gary Payton, starting guard for the Boston Celtics. Like I said, the Eastern Conference champion this year. I think, we're going to get on Marcus Smart for some of the flopping and some of the selling of some calls that he's going to get. But I think that's what a smart defensive player is going to do sometimes. To see a guard win it for the first time, do you think that's going to help shift how the defensive player year award is looked at, or this was just that once in a year? When you think about when Gary Payton won, who was the guard that won it for Gary Payton, and how long was that in between?
Right, and honestly, the flopping and stuff gets annoying, but overselling calls isn't new. It's just kind of different how certain players do it at times.
Yeah.
I always feel like, and you probably can, as soon as I said this, you probably can pull up some bad Marcus Smart flops. Obviously, they're going to be there. I don't think they're quite as bad as Kyle Lowry's, but they're on par. But a lot of times it's just him actually taking the contact but overselling it to make sure you actually see it. But I think everybody knows the kind of defender that Marcus Smart really is. And I thought the best thing about it though was the NBA finally trying to acknowledge like the game. Since we say the game is so perimeter oriented now, that's what it's all about. You got to start recognizing perimeter players that's out there guarding people. So I thought he went out and earned the award. I think I had Mikal Bridges as the winner, but I wasn't mad that Marcus Smart was there. But players like Marcus Smart, Mikal Bridges, Matisse Thybulle in Philly are putting the league on notice. Like you got to start acknowledging and putting them in these conversations to win Defensive Player of the Year, because the game is on the perimeter. So you can't just give it to the center because that's what we know, and we just gonna be lazy with it.
No, yeah, I think center win Defensive Player of the Year is like a tradition. You win from the inside out with your big man.
Yeah, but I think give them credit for their defensive rebounds and all that stuff,
right? Which is like, as a perimeter player, you got to get deflections.
With some centers in the conversation, I thought Robert Williams. I'm pretty sure who was award. I chose Robert Williams.
Jaren Jackson, I think, had a great chance to win it. Yeah. But I just think with it, as far as the guards, especially defending on the perimeter, you might hold a player to 0 for 10 throughout the whole game. But what happens when the rest of the team lets him go, 10 for 15 or 10 for 10 as well? And now he got 25, 30 points because the rest of the team can't guard him.
Right. And it's different with the guards. And say what you want about Marcus Smart's flopping, because I will acknowledge that he's flopping. I hate the flopping players, but there's only 2 guards that I know of off the top of my head in the league guards. Not because even Thybulle's 6'6", 6'7", Mikal Bridges is 6'8". Only Marcus Smart and Jrue Holiday, I'll see them guard Steph, then guard KD. Then if they get switched on Embiid, they got to stay down there for a second. Like they have different assignments. They guard taller players, smaller players. Jrue and Marcus Smart. Who else? That's a guard, 6'4".
I'm pretty sure it's somebody else, but off the top of my head,
it's probably somebody else. But those are the best 2 at it. And those are the 2 that I know. The night before we scheming for Jrue to guard KD. They scheming for Marcus to be on Giannis for possessions and stuff like that. So. Salute to them and start giving Jrue Holiday some looks at it too.
No, yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Jrue Holiday should definitely, he should. I don't know if he should have one already, but he should definitely
every year. Yeah, he could be top 3 literally every year. So I'm happy that he's finally getting knowledge and getting all defenses because he wasn't getting them before. So he's starting to rack them up now.
I guess. Speaking of Philly, like you said in the beginning, Joel Embiid had another MVP worthy season, even possibly a Defensive Player of the Year worthy season. Second team All NBA this year. Of course, we know what Philly went through with Ben Simmons not playing, then trade for James Harden in the middle of the season, and him not necessarily playing up to the standards that people have been used to. How do you feel like, just looking at taking the whole season into a whole now at the end of it, how do you feel like Joel Embiid handled this season?
I don't think he really got enough credit for because remember Philly started off hot. They only slowed down when he got COVID. He was out for a while. He had them in first place. He went out. He kind of got better, and then he came back and put them right back in position. And I don't think people don't really understand, at least from what I've seen, because they see the name at the end of the year and that he ended up playing with James Harden. But remember that trade was after the All-Star break, or was it right before? Either way, by the time that trade happened, it's 30 games left in the season. So you've already played half the season, more than half, before that trade happens, and he has Philly in position. And you expect to have when you expect to play a particular way, that's how you come to the season thinking you're gonna have to play, and then that gets changed up at the last minute. There's really no time to figure it out, honestly. And he just went out and dominated. So I don't think he got enough credit for that this year. We saw it in the stats, first center to lead the league in scoring since Shaq. I thought he should have won MVP. Not mad that Jokic won MVP because he had a great year also, but I thought Embiid should have won MVP. I thought he should have been first team All NBA, and that's really it. He held the 76ers down for sure this year, and I expect him to just get better next year, honestly.
No, for sure. Like I say, outside of, he missed a time during COVID, but
yeah,
I think another thing that really impressed me with Embiid this year was the way he stayed in shape this year. Like he didn't have those knick-knack injuries that usually he had missed, 4 games here, 2 weeks there, stuff like that. He didn't, of course, in the playoffs, that's where some of the stuff kind of came up. Yeah. But I don't even like those injuries are. Sometimes you just get injured, and those what those injuries were to me. That wasn't.
He played 68 games this year. I don't remember the exact amount that he missed for COVID, but that was at least about 5 games that he missed for COVID, 4 or 5 games. So that's not bad.
That's not bad, honestly. Like you say, this wasn't a year where he had those injuries because he was, he didn't keep himself in shape during the offseason. So I think that's another thing to be impressed with Embiid, the way he treated his body this year, knowing that that's what they were going to need for him. And Philly also with Tyrese Maxey, he was another breakout player for them. No, he wasn't the Ben Simmons all-star, all-defensive player, but I feel like he provided something that he provided what they needed this year, especially as a perimeter scorer.
Yeah, definitely. I know he didn't come into the year thinking he was going to be a starting point guard for the 76ers, and he took it in stride, and now he put people on notice that he was a part of – they traded for James Harden knowing that it still works for him, and he hit the ground running. Honestly, and I think being prepared for that role next year, I wouldn't be surprised to see Maxey up it, because he's going to know, all right, with James is going to be looking to pass. I know Embiid is going to be scoring, but it's going to be a real opportunity for him to be the second leading scorer. James is going to have big nights, so obviously he probably ends up third, but it's going to be a lot of times we're going to look up and Tyrese can get 30. I'm not saying he's going to average 30, but even average 25, but we're going to look up nights and he got like we did this year because he's just going to be in go mode.
No, yeah, for sure. Phoenix Suns broke a franchise record in wins this year. Got put out in the second round in 7 by the Dallas Mavericks. But just overall, how do you grade their season?
Phoenix, you gotta. I think the fact that they lost in the second round, that makes it disappointing. If you lose in the conference finals, I feel like that's a little different. You lose in the NBA finals again, that makes it a little different. Losing in the second round puts their season at a C for me, just because they are in championship mode. Even though they still got some young players, obviously, they are kind of in championship mode because one of your main key players is Chris Paul, and he's going to be retiring sooner than later. So, but you have to acknowledge the great year they had, the focus that they had throughout the year, 64 wins. But it's question marks for them going forward because they got to figure out their relationship with DeAndre Ayton. If the trade talks and stuff is true, who knows? It's the beginning of the offseason. It's almost draft time. Everything is gossip right now, but it is a fact that they didn't offer him the deal that he wanted last year as far as getting his extension. So that stuff is kind of up in the air. But I would have to give them a C because they, I want to acknowledge that they won 64 games. And I don't think that means nothing. I'm not one of those people
the
only thing that matters is the championship. That's the ultimate goal, but it's not the only thing that matters, honestly. But not making at least the conference finals, I think, makes it a disappointment.
No, I can see that. Like you say, especially coming off a year, they just made the championship the year before, even though they lost. Yeah. They would have liked to got back and even may have had a chance to win it. But I can definitely see a C. I'll definitely say maybe a B minus because, like you say, in the coach, I throw coach of the year in there as well. He led them to that franchise wins. But
I ain't going to Kyle Lowry. Wasn't it Kyle Lowry said this year was a waste of the year because they didn't make the finals or something like that? Like you get to the finals one time. So you saying your career's a waste? I'm not saying that, obviously, but I'm not. I don't think that's the only way you measure it. You want to win the championship. That's a goal. And if you win you make your ultimate goal, cool. But there's other goals along the way. There's team achievements. There's individual achievements. All that goes into the big basketball book.
No, yeah, I definitely agree with that. And Miami was a weird team this year, whereas they had a roster who people thought could compete, go to the NBA Finals, even though there was always questions about, would they have enough offensive firepower or just stay good consistently offensively? Injuries throughout the whole year. Jimmy Butler, Kyle Lowry, Bam missed a few games. Tyler Hero missed a couple games here and there. So they had a lot of different starting lineups depending on a lot of different players in the regular season and during the playoffs. Got your Game 7, lost to the Boston Celtics. How do you grade their season this year?
Truth be told, and I'm sure no Miami fan would agree, but I give them an A-, man. Star players missed a lot. Jimmy Butler missed a lot of basketball this year. Kyle Lowry missed a lot of basketball this year. And they were still able to get the first seed. We got to see the development of Tyler Hero, won 6th man of the year. He averaged 20 points this year. I think they found gems in certain players, even though Duncan Robinson clearly had the year he had, but to find what they found in Max Strus, to see what they found in Gabe Vincent, and making the NBA Finals is really hard. You got to get lucky. So I really grade teams like that. Like you got to make the conference finals. Once you're there, then that is what it is. It's the best 4 teams in the league at that point. So I feel like most teams will tell you, even though they want to go to the finals, their goal is at least to make the conference finals. Want to make the conference finals. So even if you won't give them a B plus or whatever, I think they're in the B plus A range because they have the best record in the league with so many players missing the time that they missed. And honestly, they had a good run in the playoffs and ran into the injury bug there also, which injuries is a part of the game. But that's also where I get into the making the finals is different. You got to have the luck of just somebody not getting hurt because Tyler Hero, he was relatively healthy this year.
In the playoffs,
right, and then you miss him, which Boston when they won the series. I'm not saying that's why they won the series, but it does hurt to not have a player averaging 20 points per game in the lineup. We remember the last 3 games from Jimmy, but nobody remembers the few games in between where he was averaging like 9 points because he was dragging because he was hurt or whatever. So health is a part of the journey of winning or whatever. So that's why I would give them an A on the season. I think they accomplished all their goals except for 2, making it to the finals and winning the finals. The only 2 things they didn't achieve this year. So, yeah, they had a great season.
No, yeah, I think that's fair. Like you say, just once you have so many injuries, you spoke of that a lot during the season. Like once you have so many injuries, especially to your star players and key rotational pieces, it's going to be hard to just be good consistently and just have that rhythm as well. Like I don't think they ever established an offensive rhythm, and I think Bam, we all expected a lot more out of. He was hurt some there too. I think that played into a lot of his season, not being 100% there. But all season's here now. You just got to be ready to go. Got to be ready to go for next season.
Yeah, for sure.
Golden State, Boston Celtics. That's why our finals, like the Golden State won it. Boston started off the year shaky. People thought there was going to be some trades happening. They was questioning Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. It'd be a good combo. Ime was almost fired a month into the season. If you let the NBA Twitter people have it, Marcus Smart, we was still wondering if he was the lead guard for them. Even at one point, he called out Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown on their playmaking. They traded for Derek White, got rid of some younger players that they probably wasn't going to play and didn't plan on playing just to get the rotation right and keep the rotation tight and let everybody know their defined roles are going to be. How well do how do you grade the Boston Celtics season this year with everything in consideration, starting off slow, picking it up, going to the finals, all that?
You got to give them an A for everything they did this year. Going through the adversity that they went through earlier, trying to figure it out, new coach, figuring out who was going to be the point guard. And they had Dennis Schroeder earlier, trying to figure out between Romeo and Peyton Pritchard, working Al back in, just figuring all that out from the start. Then they make good decisions on the for the roster. They didn't need Schroeder, make Marcus Smart the starting point guard, trade for Derek White. He's a combo guard. He can run the offense. He can play with the other guards. He's a solid defender. He can have good offensive moments. And from there on, everything got better for them. Defense was locked in. The message from the coach was locked in. Jason Tatum ascended to make his first All-NBA. And then you go through the playoffs, you're able to sweep the Nets, have one of the better game plans, or probably the best game plan we've ever seen against KD to really bother him, and to take Kyrie out of it. Then you go up against the champs. Go through the storm of Giannis because Giannis put up some big games. And just overall being able to overcome them and win that series. Then you go into Miami and to take that one in 7 on the road because Miami is the home team. So to win that on the road, and they won I think it's pretty convincing that they won. And then you make it to the finals against the Warriors dynasty, and through half of the series looked like the better team. I thought they looked like the better team early in the series. And then, championship acumen, best player in the league, Steph Curry, just took over.
All right.
You got to give them an A for their season, making it to the finals. They accomplished every goal except for one.
When the
NBA Finals, the only thing they didn't do this year.
No, that's fair.
They're coming into next year thinking Jason Tatum can win MVP. thinking I make a win coach of the year. They believe they can get back to the finals. Robert Williams was in defensive player of the year conversation. Marcus Smart won defensive player of the year.
Jaylen Brown could be an all-star next year.
Yep, he's made one before. I believe he'll be back in position to make it next year. If they had a better record at All-Star game this year, he would have made it.
No, yeah, definitely.
But since they were losing at the time, because it hadn't completely started yet, at the time they weren't going to get him 2 All-Stars. I remember we had that conversation that they could have had 2 All-Stars, but their record wasn't good enough to get 2 All-Stars. So
right.
they were going to give him 1 because Jason Tatum was going to make it. But, you going into next year thinking, hey, you got Ime, you got Jason, you got Jalen, Nia Long in the stands. It's A+. Let's
go. Right. Just Marcus Smart real quick, who I've always felt like they just used mostly as a utility player. And this year they kind of let him be the on-ball lead guard. How important was that to their season? Because, like I said, it didn't happen at the beginning of the season. They were still trying to figure out with Dennis Schroeder out there.
Yeah, it's funny how the NBA just puts you in a certain role. I know everybody looks at Marcus Smart and they say he's not a point guard because he's not the traditional point guard or whatever. But if you watch Marcus Smart at Oklahoma State, like he's played point guard. And I don't even get into these conversations because people make them so much deeper than what it is and whatever. But he was what they needed for him. I've been real big recently on everybody was talking about the intangibles, and that's what they love in the makeup of some of these players. But sometimes when players play big roles, play big minutes, you need more than their emotion. You need more than them getting everybody excited and stuff like that. You need them to produce, whether it's getting multiple charges per game, up in your field goal percentage, up in your assists, getting more steals, scoring more. You have to if you're playing big minutes, you want box score numbers. And he did that for them this year. And so it was good to see him take that next step. Because I know he was also a player that a lot of people thought that they should trade because if you're not gonna trade Tatum or Brown, he's probably your best asset or whatever. And they knew that Marcus Smart was key to their future. He kind of was like the first player that they drafted when all this started.
Right.
So he took another step this year.
Nah, yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Like box score players, man. I don't want them intangibles. Give me players.
Not too big. Like I say, not in big roles. Like I don't want all my
This is your starter playing 40 minutes and all he's giving you is yells and some texts and
it's just hard
took a charge. Like you
like your your 2 best players gotta be amazing to the point where it doesn't matter, Draymond Green on most nights.
But still you gotta
yeah.
You're a liability, you ain't winning that championship.
No, offensively or defensively.
Right.
Steve Kerr recently said that if Steph might be, if not one of the best two-way players, the best two-way players in the league. And I'm saying this to you because before you get to your actual thing, I'm bringing this to you because I understand how you always felt about this. Because I always go back when I hear this, I always go back to your KD Kawhi thing back before even KD got to the Warriors. Whereas, Kawhi is, he is great defensively, but he was okay as an offensive player. Right. Whereas you would take KD, who was by far the better offensive player, but you felt like his defense was just as good as Kawhi's defense at that point. And I take into effect, like I feel like that's what Steve Kerr is saying, like his offense is so great to where his defense doesn't have to be over the top to be considered one of the best two-way players. Do you think this NBA Finals and this season with the way Steph took the challenge of playing defense, every game, no matter who the switch was on, do you take that into account? And do you think that maybe Steve Kerr has a point?
I wouldn't say that he's one of the best, but I think he is one of the, because when you say one of the best, you just automatically think top 5, I guess.
Right, yeah.
So that's where the train of thought automatically goes, even as I'm trying to change what I'm saying, because I do think he's one of the, to be a good defender is really just about the effort. I mean, it is some skills that go here or there, not being yourself, but it just goes about the effort. And when you put in the effort, Steph doesn't get enough credit for his defensive rebounding. He's never gotten credit for his steals because people just overlook offensive players that lead the league in steals because it's like they gambling. That's always the answer for a guard that scores a lot, that gets steals. He's just gambling. And that's every player that leads the league in steals is gambling, honestly. But that's another conversation. I think where I would go with is just that Steph simply deserves respect on the defensive side, and his offense is so great that he is better than a two-way player that can be right in the middle of whatever. So, but I just mainly think you got to give him respect defensively. The numbers have shown it for a while, and then we just literally watched it in the finals. You watched them try to switch on him, and it didn't work. So you gotta give Steph his credit.
Not yet, for sure. And just looking at Golden State as a whole, I don't know if you've seen it real quick before we get to that season, and we get out of here. But Jordan Poole, the reports out there is Jordan Poole might try to command a 4-year, $100 million contract. Just yes or no, do you feel comfortable with him even being a reported number for Jordan Poole?
First of all, salaries are gonna keep going up, so
Absolutely.
$100 million isn't the same as it was.
Because I kind of get the thought if you're Golden State and you're thinking it because maybe you're staying with his production. If it stays
become an all-star, it's a bargain. If he's all-star next year, it's a bargain.
Right.
That's always the thing. It's always an investment. Nobody gives the money thinking.
Yeah, half that money is an investment.
I don't think he's gonna give him the better. You give him the extension thinking we need to extend him now because if he becomes an all-star next year and all-star the year after, now that $100 million becomes $150 million. That's the idea of it. And then when they don't become even the one-time all-star, then it's like, look at you get them. Look at Michael Porter. With that being said, I'm not comfortable giving, and like I said from the beginning, salaries are going up. So $100 million isn't the same as it used to be, but $100 million is still $100 million, and I'm not comfortable giving players $100 million that haven't made all-star games. I feel that about almost all of them. And more so in particular, definitely if you're not a starter, because he's gonna start next year. Jordan Poole start next year?
I don't know.
Probably not.
I don't know.
Probably not. So I can see them giving $100 million. I can see it happening because, like you said, what's 4 years, $100 million? That's 25?
25 a year.
Yeah. So like 20 a year is starting money. Right. 25 is
and before shout out to Zach Knowledge off the glass who brought that point. Like once you look at that list and you see who makes $100 million up, even at the low end, I think CJ was one of the few players that hadn't make an All-Star game.
And CJ, he's an All-Star player. He just had an official rank.
Jamal Murray. There was only a few players that's in that price range that hadn't made the All-Star game.
Those players have averaged 20. Jamal Murray's like right at 19, 20, whatever. You make 20 million, you average 20 points. It ain't that simple, but you know where I'm going. It's kind of close, because John Collins, he averaged 20 once. So I'm not comfortable giving $100 million to players that haven't made the All-Star game. I'm not comfortable giving $25 million a year to players that aren't starters. With that being said, they may be looking at it as an investment, like you said. And if next year he turns it up, or even in 2 years, if he goes to 23 a game, 24 a game, because Clay is starting to get older. Wiggins is going to be up for a deal soon. What do we pay Wiggins now? He just had an amazing finals. He was a starter in the All-Star game this year. We saw his ups and his downs this year. But overall, he's had career highs since being there. So I know that's all a whole nother topic and other stuff, but that's just where it gets tricky. If I'm the Warriors and I had to give him $100 million, I think I would do it, and I think they will do it. But if I'm in there negotiating, I wouldn't lose him over $100 million. But I'm trying to get him 75.
That's what Nala said, 70, and he said 70, and that's what a championship.
4 years 70. That's what. I ain't got to know math on here, but that's not 20. That's not 25 a year.
Nah, it's not even 20 a year.
It's a little under 20.
It's about 15, 16.
15 to 18 a year.
Is a good.
I'm good. And 18 is on the high end. He ain't winning most improved this year. You know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? Yeah, I give him 18 a year. It's like, all right, let's cut it off here. But actually, 20 would be my cutoff. I will offer him 80. That's a fair deal. That's 20 a year. You're coming off the bench. You got to win 6th man of the year next year. You got to win most improved player next year. 4 years, 80 million. But they give you 100, sign it. Don't ask for more. Don't negotiate. Don't hold out. Tell them to fax that thing over and tell them to wire you $1 million in cash and go have fun. I want him to get as much money as he can.
Every player.
But just from the team perspective, I would hope he would be cool with 70. But if I had to give him 8, I'd be like, you want 100? We want 70. let's agree at 80.
Right. Because this
Too far-
offseason
too far,
talk, so
not close to
nah,
100 million?
I mean, because this is offseason talk, so we definitely gonna talk about this more even after he signs his contract.
You know, everybody hate when you talk about people's money because they assume you think, oh no, you saying he shouldn't get. Look, if they offer Jordan Poole 150 tomorrow,
you better
take
sign
it.
that. No, yeah,
Take
because
it.
even I know the thing is that
Who gonna say no? Because you want to be
they also talk
overpaid,
about
underrated.
the reports out there as well that why wouldn't they? But they're also going to extend Andrew Wiggins at some point, and everybody gets asking.
What does that look like?
Andrew Wiggins, I don't want to get into, like I said, that's gonna be some off season stuff which y'all have to pay attention to. But Andrew Wiggins,
do they have to extend him now, or would that be next year?
No, I think Golden State just like extending their players just as rewards because they extended Steph in like 2 years after an extension. I think Golden State just like doing.
It's also smarter to do it sooner than later because the number is small. So it's like, all right,
I think Golden State
go ahead and get it because it's a known fact. Players don't opt out because they don't want to be there. They opt out because you get more money as a free agent, opposed to getting a new contract. You're just extending the contract. They just adding 25. Let's throw a little $3 million on there. Throw a little 5 on there. We'll go from there.
Throw 4 more years onto this 2 you already got.
Right. So
go there.
it makes sense to do it.
Absolutely. Like I said, I think Golden State just like rewarding their players, especially ones that's been there. Like say Steph got an extension in the middle of an extension in the middle of an extension. So that's just how it goes. And like I said, you can go ahead and sign them now. I think that
extensions are better for teams, period.
That's
you can get your money, your teammate can get money, y'all can keep the core together. That's why Golden State has worked, honestly. Players are
because you don't have to sign everybody at once as well. Like if I extend Jordan Poole this year and Andrew Wiggins this year, I probably ain't got to extend. If I want to extend Clay and Draymond, I can do that next year, and then I leave Steph by himself, where Steph can get the big contract, which he's gonna get one more of. But other than that, like I say, this season is a wrap. Golden State crossed the finish line first in the marathon. Injuries happen. Still, dealing with health and safety protocols. Adam Silver couldn't even give out the trophy in the finals because he wasn't there. I was like, why he ain't telecast and stuff? Like, I ain't missing this. Like, this is what I'm supposed to be here for. This is my one. This is like one of my 3 only jobs. Like, I would have been there. But season is over with. Of course, basketball isn't over. There's plenty of basketball you can watch from WNBA, Big 3, your local Pro-Am leagues, Tracy McGrady's one-on-one league. Basketball content is going to be coming out. Some stories are going to be stagnant because some people are not going to report on off-season trades and things like that and rumors. Some people's, not going to report on contracts. Some people just want to talk about the games and whatnot. So everybody's still going to be putting content out, so I always check for that because some people just going to be breaking down the season episode by episode. There's going to be some great guests on our show coming up in the off-season. Just real quick before we do our end credit things, this will probably be the last week-to-week episode we do during the off-season. We'll probably hit y'all on an every other week basis thing just to, keep the news spread out, especially while we're hanging out with a podcast episode at least one a week. But other than that, you got anything else?
Just it was another great season. Second season with Off the Ball. Shout out to the Off the Ball Network as always. Shout out to Chris LeBron, Jeff, Mo, Ken, Jelani. Shout out to my guy Jelani as always. Everybody else over there. As always, you can find us anywhere podcasts are available. Just search the Hoopers Pod, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio. Y'all probably already subscribed, so the stuff just pop up when we drop it. Appreciate those people. Go to YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube, search the Hoopers Pod, hit subscribe, like, comment, all that cool stuff. Like you said, we'll let y'all know when the next one is, but we're gonna be here. We got more stuff coming soon over the summer. Appreciate everybody that's watched anything this season, and got more to come. That's it.
John W.
It's fresh.
It was a Hoopers afternoon session.